Life of Fred. Fred won the next hand. The pot had 21 cents in it, so he drew a slip of paper from the pile in the middle of the table. It read 3. And Joe did a quick computation. 3 times 21 cents equals 63 cents, and he announced the result. Where was the extra money to come from? There was only 21 cents in the pot. How was Fred to receive 63 cents? Betty, who invented the game she called multi-flip, explained that not only is Fred's winning tripled in this case, but everyone else's losses are also tripled. Darlene whipped out the laptop computer she had won at the beauty shop raffle. She had purchased a ticket there when she was getting her hair done. She always wanted to look good for Joe. Opening a spreadsheet, she entered wins and losses. Fred, 21. Betty, -3. Alexander, -5. Joe, -8. Darlene, -5. This was the amount everyone either won or lost before the results were tripled. Joe asked Darlene, "How come my number is bigger than your numbers?" Darlene wanted to say 4 things to Joe. Number 1, say why, not how come. Number 2, your number is actually smaller than mine because it's to the left of my number on the number line. -8 is less than -5. If you learn to fold your hand, which for those of you who don't play poker much means to drop out of the game when your cards aren't good, you'd lose a lot less money. Joe never folded his hands. Aren't you impressed with my new laptop and my hair? But wisely, Darlene bit her tongue and said merely, "I guess it's the luck of the draw." She keyed into the spreadsheet the command to triple the entries in the bottom row and enter them into a new row. Fred became 63, Betty -9, Alexander -15, Joe -24, Darlene -15. While Joe was counting out the 24 pennies he owed Fred, he looked at some notes. Note number one. When you look at the original wins and losses, they add to 0 as we would expect. +23 plus a -3 plus a -5 plus a -8 plus a -5 equals 0. What one person loses, another gains. In game theory, which is a later topic in math, this is called a zero-sum game. You add them all up, wins and losses, and the sum is always 0, so zero sum. In real life, in contrast to pushing pennies around on a table, we often find that we're not in a zero-sum game. If you share your algebra knowledge with a friend, you don't lose what your friend gains. The number of pennies on the table stays constant. The amount of knowledge in the world doesn't. Note number 2, when we triple all the wins and losses, we get 3 multiplied by every integer, which is 3 times 21, 3 times -3, 3 times -5, 3 times -8, 3 times -15. When we get to using letters in our algebra, we might write this as 3 times a plus b plus b, c, d plus e, which equals 3a plus 3b plus 3c plus 3d plus 3e, and call this the distributive property. But it's too soon to do that now. The doorbell rang. It was 6:30 and Stan Anthony's Pizza was making its usual Thursday night delivery. Alexander strode to the door. When you're as tall as Alexander, you don't just walk and open it. It was Stan Anthony himself at the door. "Hello, you guys. I'm so happy to make this delivery myself. My delivery boy, he's sick, and besides, I wanted to meet my best customers." Stan Anthony had picked up his rotten Italian accents from all the Marx Brothers movies he'd seen. Stan Anthony used to have a pizza joint where all the gang from Kittens used to meet, but it closed after the big party celebrating Alexander and Betty's engagement was held there. The place, how shall we say it, kind of melted. See Life of Fred Calculus for details. Now he runs a pizza delivery service. The same fine pizza, only delivered hot to your home. Alexander paid him and brought in the pizza to the waiting crowd. Betty had already cleared the table. Darlene had brought out the glasses and poured the sluice, not to be confused with Slice, Sprite, Storm, or even 7-Up, which all start with S, and which some people tend to confuse with each other. Sluice is different. Its bubbly clearness contains turtle spit, giving it a sweet lemon-lime flavor. Yuck. She dropped an ice cube into each glass. After saying grace, they opened the box, and the aroma of Stan Anthony's combination pizza filled the room. Joe took his pieces and proceeded to pick off the pepperoni and put them into one of the chip trays. He had never liked pepperoni. Joe turned the box toward himself so that he could read the inside of the cover. "Look," he said, "it's just like your computer. Stan Anthony's finest combo pizza. Just like how you like it. Serving size, 1 a bigger slice. Protein, 4 grams. Carbs, 12 grams. Calcium, 0.2 grams. Pepperoni, 6 grams. But I always eat 6 slices, he continued. How am I going to know how this works out for 6 slices? And what's the G mean? Darlene told him the G stood for grams, which is a metric measure of weight, and that a raisin weighs about a gram. She wiped her hands and fired up the laptop. She did this every Thursday at about 6:43. It was a ritual that she and Joe had. It kept him happy. She had learned to save it on her hard drive so she didn't have to enter the data each week. After the screen came alive, she presented to him, just for Joe, serving size. Protein, carbs, calcium, pepperoni. 1 bigger slice, 6. Joe, 6 slices. 4 times 6, 24. 12 times 6, 72. 0.2 times 6, 1.2. 6, none, since you picked them off. Joe, did you ever notice, Betty remarked, that the ratio of protein in 1 slice to the protein in 6 slices is 4 to 24. Ratio, Joe frowned. Darlene was going to say, yes, that's a radio with a T, but she again kept quiet. Yes, Betty continued, 4 to 24 means the same as 4 divided by 24 or 4 over 24. At that point, Joe got it. Betty was a good and patient teacher who for years had known that after she finished her life as a student at Kittens, she would go on to teaching math. Fred had been her teacher from the first days that he taught at Kittens, and she knew from those first moments that she wanted to do with her life. I think I noticed something, Joe reflected. The ratio of the number of slices is 1 to 6, and the ratio of the grams of protein is 4 to 24. Those are equal. 1 to 6, 4 to 24. And wait a minute. For the carbohydrates, it's 12 to 72, which is the same as the 1 to 6 and the 4 to 24. The ratios are equivalent. Isn't that a coincidence? Not really, Joe, said Betty. The amount of protein you get is proportional to the number of slices you eat. She recalled the day Fred had written on the board, a proportion is the equality of 2 ratios. You know, said Joe, changing the subject, I wish when you order the combination pizza next time you would ask Stan Anthony about the pepperoni ask Stan Anthony to put the pepperoni all on the outside edge of the pizza. That makes it easier to pick off. Joe tore off the pizza box lid and took the little 1-inch pepperoni slices out of his chip tray and arranged them in a circle on the lid. Although Joe didn't like the taste of pepperoni, he did like to play with his little greasy poker chips, as he called them. I have too many chips to count, he announced. There must be an infinite number of them. Don't you think so, Alexander? Alexander had been mildly attentive to what Joe had been doing. Laying them all out in a circle is one of Joe's least imaginative projects. Last week he had built a little fort out of them. He had called it Fort Francine, but when Darlene glared at him in jealousy, he changed it to Fort Darlene, claiming it had just been a slip of the tongue. An infinite number? No, responded Alexander. I guess there are about 75 of those 1-inch slices. "How'd you do that?" exclaimed Joe. "Well," Alexander said, "what size pizza do we normally order?" Joe knew the answer to that. It's St. Anthony's medium. Do you remember how many inches that is? Darlene pointed at the lid of the box to help Joe get the right answer. St. Anthony's finest medium, 25 inches. And since pizzas are measured by their diameters, we had 25 inches all the way across. That's the diameter. "Well," continued Alexander, "if I know the diameter of a circle, then I know its circumference. It's about 3 times as long as the diameter. We had that last Sunday in our Bible class. Remember when they were talking about the round tank that was 10 across and 30 around? 1 Kings 7:23. Circumference. "But my circle isn't 10 across," Joe protested. "It's 25 inches across." "You're right, so its circumference would be about 3 times that distance, which makes 75 inches, since those are 1-inch pepperoni slices. I figure there's about 75 of them." Alexander smiled. "Oops, I lost count. I wonder if there will be exactly 75 slices," Joe speculated. "Maybe not," said Alexander. "I said there'd be about 75 slices. Just the slices. First, the slices may not be exactly 1 inch in diameter. Second, the pizza is only approximately 25 inches across. Third, the formula for circumference, C equals 3D, is only approximately true. In this formula that Alexander was using, the circumference, C stood for the circumference and D stood for the diameter. If, for example, D were equal to 10, then C would be equal to 3 times 10, which is 30, which is what we had in the 1 Kings passage. If D were equal to 25, then the circumference would be 3 times 25. Joe frowned. "What do you mean when you say C equals 3D is only approximately true? Make it truer." "I'd be glad to. How about C equals 22 over 7 times D? That's more accurate." Joe was happier. He tried the formula out and put it in the value of 25 for D and found that C equals 22 divided by 7 times 25 on the part of the table that he hadn't written it on, and he did the work with the fractions. 22 times 25, 550 divided by 7, 78 4/7. "So," proclaimed Joe, "there are exactly 78 4/7 pepperoni slices on the circumference of a pizza circle." "Well, that's closer than when we used C equals 3 times D," Alexander admitted. "What do you mean closer?" Joe asked. "Isn't that the true answer?" Then a little light dawned in Joe's memory, and he announced, "Yes, I know, you don't tell me. The really correct formula is C equals 3.14 D. Then he wrote on the edge of the table, since the top was completely covered with his writing. C equals 3.14 times 25, which is 75.5. Joe went on. "I remember the 3.1 formula. We had C equals 3.14 D taught to us a long time ago. My 7th grade math teacher, Miss Angie Messon, told us this is the formula we were to learn. So 78.5 is the exact answer, isn't it?" Alexander shook his head slowly. "That was good for the 7th grade. It gave you what they used to call slide rule accuracy, which is about 3 significant figures. But the true answer might be 78.48 or 75.52 or something like that." "Make it right," Joe exclaimed. "I don't want a 7th grader brain in my head for the rest of my life. If it isn't 3.14, what is it?" "Okay, Joe, you asked for it. The really correct formula relating to the circumference of a circle to its diameter is C equals 3.141592653589793238462643D. Joe asked, "You mean it's got 25 digits as a coefficient of D?" Coefficient is the number that goes in front of one or more letters that are multiplied together. For example, 7 is a coefficient of 7xyz, and 3,908 is the coefficient of 3,908 W. No, I'm afraid not, Joe, Alexander sighed. I got tired of writing. After all, with 10 decimal digits, if you took the diameter of the Earth, which is about 8,000 miles, you could compute the circumference of the Earth to an accuracy of about 1/8 of an inch. I gave you 25 digits, Joe. I want more, Joe declared. Alexander looked at his beloved Betty and said to her, I've only got 25 memorized, Betty. He shrugged his shoulder. Betty turned to Joe and asked, But you've written all over the table. How can I write more digits for you? Joe smirked and held out his felt tip pen in his right arm. Okay, Betty said with a resigned look on her face. She began at his right wrist and wrote. Look at all those digits. Wow. Oh my. It all went on the next page. She's writing all over his arm. At this point, Betty had covered most of Joe's body and was coming down to his left wrist. She said, Well, I guess I'm running out of room. I'll have to put the D on it at this point, she said. She also wrote 275901D. Later that night, when Joe gave a goodnight hug to Darlene, he left 58133904780275901D on the back of her white blouse. Joe had a lot of questions at this point. Joe's question number 1. When does this number end? Answer. It doesn't. Joe's question number 2. When does it start to repeat itself? You know, like 1/7 is this. Answer. This never repeats. Joe's question number 3. You were making up all these digits, weren't you, Betty? Answer. No, these are the actual digits. Joe's question number 4. What about all these 9s? See the previous page. Those 6 9s just happened. Joe's question number 5. Is there any shorter name for... Answer. Yes. Joe's question number 6. Well, what is it? Pi. You misspelled it, Joe's question number 7. You misspelled it, Betty. Pi is spelled P-I-E. Answer. No, it isn't. It isn't like a pizza pie. This is a letter from the Greek alphabet that is written pi. Joe's question number 8. But if it's a letter, how can we let it stand for a number? We just let it. Take your choice, Joe. You can write pi or you can write all of that. Joe's question number 9. Just one last question then. If Mrs. Angie Mason's formula wasn't the exact one, what's the exact formula? Answer. Easy. It's C equals pi times the diameter. So the number of 1-inch pepperoni slices needed to make a circle on a 25-inch pizza is 25 pi. If you want to approximate your answer, use as many digits of pi as you want. Joe had asked all the questions he could think of. Betty had as many answers as Joe had questions. She was good at answering questions. Now it's your turn for a while.